Afternoon all, welcome to Archant Towers. David Freezer here alongside our chief Norwich City correspondent.
It's been a long day, mate. It's been a long 10 minutes trying to get connected on either.
I think we're online now. Paddy Dave, as I'm sure you're well aware. In the middle of an international break, of course, Pad, but plenty going on already and should be quite a busy weekend as well. Marley Watkins is sort of the most notable one, I suppose, so far. First international senior action. 6-0 win in China yesterday. It's got to be good for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, the mere fact that he was included in Ryan Giggs' first squad, I would take that as a very positive sign. Yeah, he got on for 20 minutes, so he's already long since won the game. Bale doing what Bale does, but I think it was notable. You know, the younger players, Wilson, the boy Wilson, who's on loan from Liverpool to Hull, who was very good against Norwich.
Very good, yeah. People
remember in that recent game, that 4-3 kamikaze game, and then he went on, I think, and went and scored at Portman Road 2 or 3 days later. Yeah. He got his first goal for his country on his 21st birthday, so he's clearly a talented young lad. Ben Woodburn, another of the Liverpool contingent, highly rated young striker. And one or two others as well. I think there was a guy who played against Norwich for Barnsley, Bradshaw, as well. I think he got on as well. So if you're Marley, you'd take that as a positive sign that, you know, Ryan Giggs has felt, you know, you're part of that mix, and it's certainly got the international week off to a flying start. Obviously, Marcus Edwards last night, part of the England under 20s, got off to a winning start. Played some football. That's a start.
That is a start, yeah. I mean, I think the only football he'd really played this season was a Checkatrade Trophy game for Spurs.
Was that this season?
That was this season.
Oh, Checkatrade, yeah. Sorry, I'm thinking of he played League Cup, didn't he, as well? That was his debut, but that was last season, wasn't it?
So that's only under 21s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just let us know you can hear us all right. I've had a comment from Callum saying we're a bit quiet. If that is a problem, just let us know and I'll have a quick fiddle. But we should be all right. We've got the mic set up and stuff. But yeah, obviously he's been here since January and not been playing, has he? Since he joined on loan from Spurs, but he was on the bench on Saturday against Reading for the first time. Didn't come on. It wasn't really the appropriate game to be chucking him into for his debut. But really, an hour under his belt is certainly going to be good news for Daniel Farke, with the potential of another game to come on Tuesday.
Definitely, yeah, and he needs to play games, that's for sure. But I don't know, you get the sense that ship might have sailed now in terms of Norwich and Marcus Edwards, certainly for this season. Very difficult to see, albeit, as you rightly say, you know, the injuries did open a path to him to the bench, if nothing else. But you know, we've seen some Instagram there of Leitner in recent days. He looks like he's not going to be too far away the other side of the international break. Tribal, by all accounts, is on course to be back for the end of the season. And Hernandez and Murphy have just shown signs now that they're a very good little player in there. And of course, you know, Maddison's fit, Maddison's plays. So I think it's going to be difficult for him to get too much action between now and the end of the season. But who knows? And you know, we've talked a lot about Marcus Edwards, but we've not actually seen a lot of Marcus Edwards. So maybe that'll continue.
Well, he was wearing the number 10 on his back yesterday. So you are very quiet. Apparently the microphone's a bit quiet. I'm not sure why that would be.
Should we try unplugging the microphone?
Yeah, bear with us 2 seconds, folks. I think we can probably sort this. Mike may have let us down, but if I bring this a little bit closer, then that might be a bit better. Let us know if that's...
Volume on the old phone, DF, that's turned up, is it?
Well, that won't make a difference for listening. But yeah, let us know if that's a bit better. Maybe the microphone's let us down a little bit there. But yes, they got the under-20s got another game on Tuesday against Portugal. So more minutes for him is obviously going to be good there. But yeah, he wore the number 10 on his back last night. There weren't many details available. Wow, that's better, right? That's for some reason the microphone's let us down. But thanks, chaps. It seems like that's worked. So we will stick with that one. Microphones, who needs them really? Just let the iPhone do the work. Yes, so he was wearing the number 10 on his back. There weren't many details sort of made public on that game because it was only a friendly for the under-20s. The FA didn't do much for a match report, but in their report they said that Edwards and Harvey Barnes, who of course was on loan at Barnsley first half of the season from Leicester and looked very good as well, they both had chances. So that can only be good. If he can get another hour under his belt, then perhaps he can press his course. But Daniel didn't really have much choice but to put him on the bench against Reading. So we want to know what sort of player he is, really. And Daniel sort of said, we know he's a creative player, don't we, and a tricky player, but I think he can play on the right as well as centrally, can't he?
Yeah, but ultimately, unless there's something that hasn't been disclosed in terms of next season, Marcus Edwards and Norwich, then you've got 8 games left. What's to be gained by playing the guy for 8 games? Plus Norwich have scored 3 goals in 2 of the last 3 games. So it feels like the mix is certainly coming together a bit more than it has been. So I don't think we need to worry too much about Marcus Edwards anymore in a Norwich environment, certainly for the rest of this season.
We shall see. Robin Hodgson says, really don't see the point of bringing Edwards in, not going to be part of long term. Also saw as an underused Middleton leave. Okay, well, I mean, I think Glenn Middleton was a slightly different player in that he was an out-and-out left winger, whereas Edwards is a bit more of a playmaker, a bit more of a creative, Pritchard / Houlihan type player. So he's very small, isn't he? I mean, sorry, you weren't there for the Reading game, were you, Pad? But we saw him warming up, and he's about Wes Houlihan sized. So he's not going to be making any physical, imposing challenges, I wouldn't have thought. Kicking off the international action was Adam Ida with the Ireland under-17s. They beat Macedonia 3-0 on Wednesday, and he scored a penalty. He's now scored something like 13 goals in 16 games for the Ireland under-17, so he likes it at that level, and there's probably a vacancy for someone to try and push their way in as a backup striker this latter stage of the season, isn't there?
Yeah, possibly, but I mean, we were talking more broader terms than that, and physically, for a 17-year-old lad, he looks way beyond that age group already. So, you just get the sense, where's he going to be in a year or two if he continues to develop? I mean, you've seen him more than I have, but if his character matches his ability in terms of his, good head on his shoulders, very mature, then he could really be pushing through into that first team setup. And as Daniel and Stuart Webber have continued to say, if there'll be no presents, that's the gift. There'll be no gifts, that's the phrase. But if they're doing it, and like Campwell, like Jamal, Maddison to a lesser degree, but if these guys are doing it, then they'll get a chance, and that's all he can do. As you say, I mean, that is prolific at that level internationally. You'd imagine this start of next season he'll be firmly in and around the development squad with Matty Gill. If he starts scoring in those quantities, then it won't be long before we see him in a first team environment, and that's what needs to happen. We all know the financial situation, that they need to develop their own, and the sooner we start seeing that, I think the more chances of them actually competing at the right end of the table.
Callum Howard asks, how excited are you guys to see Campwell come back from Europe?
Yeah.
Seems to have made a big impact at Fortuna Sittard, but now he's got it looks like a little bit of a thigh injury or something, which ruled him out of their game on Friday, although
I think they're playing tonight, aren't they? So we'll see.
Is that tonight?
Yeah,
is it?
There's another game tonight.
Todd has suggested it's not anything too serious, but whether he's back or not tonight, we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, we've both seen a reasonable amount of him, and we saw him at Chelsea in the FA Cup, of course. And I suppose the key to Todd is Maddison, isn't it? If Maddison leaves, then there could well be an opening for him. There
could be, but again, it's all about the levels and 20 minutes or whatever he had at Stamford Bridge, and now a few games on loan in the Dutch second division. It's a big ask to throw that guy in and say you're almost in the Maddison influential role, and a lot's going to rest on you in terms of our creativity. It's a key area of the pitch. It's a key area of what Farke's trying to do, how he likes his teams to play. I think he'd certainly be in and around the squad at the start of the season, but it wouldn't at all surprise me if, I don't know, we'll throw this out there, Maddison's departs, but they can maybe get Leitner back in. You've got Tribal there as well, Ben Godfrey, possibly not Tete, Louis Thompson maybe in the mix. And maybe they play slightly deeper, some of those players, but I just think in terms of an arsenal of midfield players, there probably wouldn't be a lot of opportunity for a Campwell in that sort of mix. So yeah, he'll certainly come back in the summer, and if he was to do a Jamal Lewis type pre-season, then he would clearly stay with Daniel Farke's group. But it wouldn't at all surprise me if, a little bit like Godfrey and Morris this current season, get him into League One somewhere, season-long loan, and go and play 30-odd games and really kick on in your development.
it'd be interesting to see in terms of pre-season. Someone like Carlton Morris, you probably say is in the balance at the moment, wouldn't you? So he probably is one similar to Todd, needs to come in and lay down a marker in pre-season, like Jamal did. I think Ben Godfrey, even if Alex Tetty stays, he's likely to be in the mix next year, isn't he? Because he fits what they're looking for. Just wonder whether that might create some sort of vagaries in the transfer market for Webber. He seems to be very keen on his sort of long-term planning. I wonder whether they are sort of willing to see how pre-season goes, or whether he sort of has his categories as he sees them set for next season already.
I think he strikes me as quite innovative in that sense, that he's not got a rigid kind of we must now fill X, Y and Z holes in the squad, because as was proven in last summer's window and also in January, you can get overtaken by events. You know, Pritchard being the obvious one. You know, Pritchard, I would imagine they would have liked to have kept him and worked with him for the rest of the season. Yeah. That wasn't how it played out. You know, he made it clear he wanted away. Huddersfield made it clear they wanted the guy, so they then had to react a little bit to that, and it'll be the same again. That's the only way you can operate, even though the finances sort of contracted to such a degree that they're going to have to be very circumspect in the actual business they do go and do. But I don't think, as we sit here now, you know, this far out from the summer, that Stuart Webber has got in his head that I'm only going to need to work in 2 or 3 areas of the squad, because you just don't know. As you said right at the top, you know, Maddison, the probability is he will go, but when he goes and if he goes and who to, you know, that's all up in the air. So, you know, it might well be that we come back for pre-season and James Maddison's still a Norwich player. You just don't know. The World Cup complicates matters as well in terms of doing business if you're a top-end Premier League club. So I think they'll have to be very fluid, and to be honest, Stuart Webber, every time you speak to him, you get that sense that it's not just a plan A and a plan B. They'll have multiple scenarios drawn up for every eventuality.
For how much they get for Maddison.
Yeah, well, yeah, that is right. Yeah.
Simon Meadows says playing Murphy in his best position and Hernandez on the other wing has definitely improved us as an attacking unit as we go forward. Hopes Rabeni is given more time up front as he is improving. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that quite a bit in the podcast on Monday with Michael, didn't we? About this sort of change in emphasis. Maddison and Vrancic clearly told to get the ball out quickly to Murphy and Hernandez, and it was probably one of the most fluent attacking performances we've seen from them. Again, obviously you weren't at the game on Saturday, Pad, but do you expect that perhaps that's almost a flick that switched with Farke and he will now sort of pursue that kind of avenue, or you would have thought we're going to see the 3 at the back return at times, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, without wanting to go back over old ground, anybody who's listened to the podcast, that feels like the inherent contradiction at the minute. The 3, which gives them so much defensive solidity in front of Angus Gunn, is that compatible with playing a 3 at the top end of the pitch? I'm sure there's ways of doing it, but it feels like it's one or the other at the minute, because we haven't seen that 3 that you talked about on Saturday with a back 3. It's basically been a back 4 in recent games, and if you could marry the best of both of those, i.e. the defensive solidity with far more potency and far more threat in wide areas, then you'd start to be reasonably confident that Norwich could really propel themselves into the top end of the division next season. But I think there's no doubt, I think the Josh Murphy thing is it's irrefutable now that he needs to play in a wider left, because
it's said it himself, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you would like to think, in terms of, as you say, Farke reaching positions in terms of his own mind about certain players, that he's now decided that maybe that's one for down the line with Josh. You know, it's commendable that he feels he's got the talent and the gifts to maybe develop a little bit more of a nuanced threat to his game, but it just wasn't working. You know, he wasn't offering enough down the middle of the park, and you lose what he's good at, which is getting on the outside of fullbacks, getting to the byline and putting balls in. And yeah, I wasn't at the game, but there was enough in the highlights package that you could tell that he was really enjoying himself, and when he does that, then Norwich look a better attacking threat in the final third. And Trebeni's an interesting one. I mean, as I say, you were at the game, Dave. I think the feeling there was that he really took a step forward in terms of, you know, what it's all about and what he needs to do and how he needs to be a threat, and that's a really positive sign. But I just would like personally to see between now and the end of the season he gets plenty of football and maybe gets himself 3 or 4 goals, because it's all about next season now. And if he could start to add some goals to his all-round game, then that's very encouraging. And let's be honest, they need to find a striker who can score a few goals.
Yeah, that's what he needs. It definitely was a step forward in terms of he looked hungry. I mean, I maybe felt a little bit sorry for Oliveira and Watkins in that the change of shape with two genuine attackers meant he wasn't anywhere near as isolated. And Nelson, in particular, has looked so isolated at times and just been up at the top end of the pitch. And we all know that sort of traditional centre-forward play isn't really what he's good at. But Shabeni worked hard, he was strong. He caused problems for the Reading defence. His touch looked good. Some of the things that he did brought cheers from the crowd. And if he'd just got that goal, I think.
Well, he had a great chance, didn't he, at the end? But,
really good chance, isn't it?
On fine margins, he gets that confidence goes up another notch or two, and it's to be seen if he's one of those type of strikers who scores in clumps, rather than consistently week in week out. But he came to Norwich as the top scorer in the third tier of German football, so he should know where the back of the net is. But it was a bit of a snatched effort, and that was a shame because that probably would have put the seal on a very encouraging performance.
Yeah, definitely. Liam Bendel talking about the goalkeepers. When Gunn leaves at the end of the season, will McGovern or Matthews be number one? Do you think we will be looking for a new goalkeeper? That may well depend on what Mr McGovern does, really, because he's got a year left on his contract, doesn't he? It looks like Remy Matthews is going to come in and again is going to be another who needs to impress in pre-season. Could even be number one if he's impressed enough, because he's done very well at Plymouth. But I think Michael McGovern is on decent wages. If somebody was looking to take him, I think Norwich would probably be okay with that, wouldn't they?
I think they probably would, yeah. I think he falls into a bracket of player there who are on the fringes or in Naismith or Martin's case are not even in the building at present. And again, with the financial thing that underpins all these decisions moving forward, yes, I think they wouldn't be too averse to seeing Michael depart. And with those guys, when they come into the final year of the contract, they need to be playing. Lafferty was in a similar situation this time last summer, that it reaches a point or a tipping point in their contracts when they're coming towards that final 12 months where they need to start thinking about, well, if it's not going to be for me here, then I need to get myself out and playing, which you've seen with the two lads up in Scotland in January. And McGovern must be feeling that is the case. He's the other side of 30, isn't he? I'm pretty sure.
33, I think.
Yeah, is he?
I think he turns 34 this summer.
So he will feel that he will need to go and be playing somewhere and try and get himself a contract. If it's not going to be at Norwich, then he's got to go somewhere else. So, yeah, that's all part of what we were just discussing there with Webber. There's so many moving parts to a lot of areas of the squad this summer. I wouldn't say it's a given that Remy would come in and automatically be the number one. I certainly think he'll get a chance, because that's how they worked last summer. So there's no reason to believe it'll be any different this time around with Daniel and his coaches. But after the success of Angus, and that's just been a brilliant move for both parties. It wouldn't at all surprise me if they are looking again at young, hungry, up and coming keepers maybe who are in and around Premier League clubs who aren't going to be playing next season and repeat the experiment, because why wouldn't you? It's worked so well, spectacularly well, really. And if they don't quite feel Remy's going to be able to step up from the start, then I wouldn't rule that out either.
It's one of those situations where maybe it doesn't make sense to look in Germany, because you've got to think of the homegrown quota. There's a lot of overseas players already been brought in. Next year you also have to have an academy product. You have to have 7 homegrown quota players, the ones who fit those rules, and an academy product. So Jamal, Josh, Remy would all tick that box, wouldn't they? So the one thing I'd be interested with Matthews, I don't watch Plymouth week in, week out, obviously. The thing we've seen that Angus is very good at, the thing we were told he was very good at before he arrived, is that he's good with his feet, his kicking's good, you can trust him for the defenders to use him as an outlet to get themselves out of trouble. Now, do Plymouth play that way? I would be surprised in League One, given that they've forced their way up the division in the way they have, whether he's been playing the ball around at the back. That could have a big impact in a similar way, maybe in outfield terms, to Sean Raggett, who hasn't seen much football since he came in, because it would seem that they're not convinced that he can use the ball well enough yet.
Yeah, which is a point that actually there's been a few pieces with Kenny McLean in recent days, and one of the factors that he said that so impressed him or attracted him to Norwich was the style of play. He watched those Chelsea Cup games, and even though they were playing against top level opposition, this commitment was still there to play it out from the back and be comfortable in possession. And he said that fitted his game and how he likes to play football. And so you're right, yeah, it's quite clear that Raggett, they don't feel he is comfortable enough in possession. And until he develops that element to his game, then I don't think we'll be seeing him in Norwich's starting 11. So, going back to Remy, I don't know, but I wouldn't say that at the start of the season there was a lot of talk about the gun factor coming in from Man City, Guardiola, almost like an outfield player in terms of with the ball at his feet. I think when we got that watershed sort of period, Villa, Millwall, when it was literally, okay, well, that's how we want to play, we're going to have to be a bit more pragmatic. I don't think we've seen as much of that from Angus in terms of playing with the ball at his feet outside of his area. I think they've been a little bit more cautious for the remainder of the season, and also you watch him, he's not averse to actually going long as well, in games. So I wouldn't say that's an issue in terms of Remy. It'll be just basically, does he have the presence? Does he have the character in terms of presence? The aura that he gives off, which with Gunn, forget his age, he looks like a guy who's been playing at this level for many a year. So can we get that same sense from Remy? And if we don't, then I'll throw a name in there. I mean, the boy Ward, who's basically not getting a game at Liverpool now, but was absolutely integral to Huddersfield's rise that season.
Danny Ward, is it? Danny
Ward, yeah. He's gone back to Liverpool. He was a Liverpool keeper. He was on loan at Huddersfield. Yeah. He saved penalty after penalty on that playoff run, particularly, and went back to Liverpool. Wanted to take his chance there, and it's not happened. Carius, and if it's not Carius, it's Mingale. So there's a guy there who I'm sure will be looking to get out and play football next season. I think you'll find as well he's from the same neck of the woods as Mr. Webber as well. Yeah. So I'll just throw that one in there. Wouldn't be at all surprised to see a deal of that nature, because we've seen with Angus, it's absolutely pivotal position in the side. You need to give your back four / back three that confidence as well. And they might feel it could be a little bit of a gamble from the outset to step up with Remy, but who knows? We don't know how Daniel's thinking in those areas. But I think one thing is for sure, as Liam said, I think Gunn will be leaving, and it'll be sad to see him go. But he's, as I say, he's proved that he's probably a bit too good for this level now.
He's done very well, and perhaps he'll have to learn from what Danny Ward has done, and he's going to have to take the Celtic or Stoke option if they're the ones that do materialise. Mentioned Kenny McLean there. Kenny and Grant Hanley, both in the Scotland squad, they play Costa Rica in a friendly tonight, which kicks off same time as England game, 7:45. So we'll keep an eye on how they get on and update you on PinkUn.com with that. Kenny's looking to win his third cap. He played against Holland in a friendly in November, played the full game. So both trying to impress Alex McLeish, who's obviously back as Scotland boss. Another comment here from Ben Woodward. Controversial opinion, but Klose and Pinto have both been good this season, but have they been good enough to justify their wages, which I assume are quite high? Can you see these two leaving in the summer? Well, I'd imagine Klose's wages are certainly going to be higher than Evo's, because he came from the Bundesliga with Wolfsburg, didn't he?
That mad January with Naismith.
That mad January, yeah. With 20 million plus spent, wasn't it, trying to make sure that they stayed in the Premier League. Whereas Evo was playing in Croatia, wasn't he, for Zagreb. So that is not going to be a league which has much money in it. So whether Evo's wages are a big problem, I don't know. But they both got a year left on their contract as the next season starts, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to call it as I see it at the minute, then I think they'd like to do a deal with Pinto and keep Pinto here, because he's okay. He's towards the back end of the season. He's been a bit in and out with injury, but I still think certainly Farke rates him highly. He was made captain, wasn't he, when Russell was moved to the side? So he's one of those that Farke references in terms of he's a little bit more experienced, and they're going to need that. You can't just, we're talking about Campbells of this world, even Remy to a degree, you can't just basically pack your team with youngsters next season and expect to sort of be competing at the top end. So he would tick a lot of boxes, and I think they would be quite keen to do something in terms of him. Closer on the other hand, you're right, I think the finances probably would dictate that, again, as I said earlier, in terms of McGovern, Jarvis, Naismith, Martin, I think he would be in that category if there was a deal there and it worked for all parties. And I think we could be seeing Tim Closer coming to the end of his Norwich contract, or his Norwich tenure, so to speak. And I'm sure you'd like to keep him, because he's proven himself such a popular figure with the fans and such a wholehearted player. But ultimately, as we said there, he joined the club to play in the Premier League. He came from the top tier of Germany. He was a Swiss international. He's obviously sacrificed his international ambitions to a degree because he's been quite open and honest about that. The head coach, Petkovic, I think it is, won't pick players who are not in the Premier League or in the top tier around Europe. So you have to tip your hat to him for that. But I think for me, I think it probably would be one of those that maybe coming to a natural conclusion this summer, subject to it being a sufficient interest and the finances being right. And then, of course, that begs the question: what would Norwich do then? Leisner, the guy they were linked with heavily last summer, he's apparently rejected a new contract at Union Berlin. So, is that one that could be reactivated? Who knows?
That's one that's been suggested in Germany a little bit already, isn't it? Yeah, Tony Leisner. So we've basically got the summer transfers sorted now. Then haven't we? Had Closer out, Leisner in.
Basically, everything we've said, the complete opposite will happen, mate, which is usually the way of the world. But it certainly won't be dull. It might not be quite. We're just out of shot here. Dave's homemade A3 transfer.
PinkUn transfer centre.
Yeah, okay, as it's otherwise known, yeah, which was basically struggling for some extra space. I don't think that'll be the case this time round. I don't think there'll be quite as many names going on.
And I think that's important as well. I think the whole project and the evolution of it under Daniel, they need a settled summer because it's been, they've had to tear things up the last 2 summers. So it's important that it's nice and settled and that they, maybe get a few more contracts there just so that everyone knows where they are and so there's no excuses. They can hit the start of next season. Yeah. It's Daniel's team, it's Stuart Webber's squad and club, and then they can really crack on from there. Barry Newman says, who should be captain next year? Throwing Grant Hanley in the ring seems a natural leader and put his body on the line no matter what. Pinto has been a reasonable captain. Christoph Zimmermann was Daniel Farke's captain at the Dortmund under 23s, wasn't he? So I guess he would be high up there and would also be popular, but Grant's going to be #1 contender, isn't he?
Can't look past him, can you? You really can't. Just a natural leader, armband or no armband. Wrote about it actually a few days ago, and
your column. Yeah.
You could just see. I mean, it's not what he says; it's what he does, really. And those players in that dressing room, I'm sure if Grant Hanley stands up and says, "Right, get behind me, boys," they'll be following him.
Big time.
And physically, it reminds me of, I think, McGeechan with the Lions, or where he wanted Martin Johnson, because when he went in to speak to the opposition captain or the referee before the game, you're looking up sort of at this imposing figure, and you can see the parallels with that kind of thing. That if Grant Hanley's leading at the start of the line going out of the tunnel, then that's got to intimidate, I would think. So that wouldn't at all surprise me. It's a fair shout. I mean, if Pinto is still here next season and was leading the team out, would he want to change that too much? But really, it's not too much about who's got the armband, is it? It's just basically that leadership coming through and that experience as well, because they're going to need it. It's at the risk of repeating myself, it won't be enough to go, there's Bowen Godfrey, there's Jamal, there's Todd Cantwell. It's all going to come together and on we go. It's just unrealistic to think that you can't have mixed in with the youth some real streetwise nous, and Hanley's got that in abundance.
Absolutely. Just to we'll get your last sort of questions and comments in now. We'll be wrapping up in sort of 5 minutes' time. The internationals tomorrow, you've got Northern Ireland to watch out for. As just mentioned, Jamal Lewis there. Him and Michael McGovern both hoping to play against South Korea tomorrow. That's at 2 o'clock. England under 21s there at 5:15. They're playing Romania at
Molineux, yeah. Just a friendly, that one, yeah.
But there's a bit of a injury worry over Angus Gunn, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, Adi Bufroy did some media yesterday, and both him and Woodman, the Newcastle guy who's on loan at Aberdeen, they're both out training, but you take Adi Bufroy's comments that he said that was just a precaution and that they should both be in contention for Saturday's game. I think there will be another press conference later on today with Bufroy, so we'll get an update on that. But I mean, that's the downside, isn't it? It's great to see these lads go off, and it's a feather in their cap, and it reflects well, like with Jamal, it reflects well on Daniel and the work he's done. But you do not want them, admittedly, okay, we're not in the teeth of a promotion or a relegation battle, but you wouldn't want them coming back injured, because as was demonstrated for the Reading lineup, you're down to the bare bones anyway. So that's the worry, I suppose, that any of these lads come back and they're not fit for the running.
The other game tomorrow is James Maddison, of course, is in there as well. In case I missed him, and Harry Winks dropped out injured, so that could help Madders in terms of getting some game time. Adam Ida back in action probably tomorrow as well. The Ireland under-17s play Georgia at 4:30. They've got 3 games in Poland in sort of a bit of an intensive qualifying round for the European Championship.
Which are actually in England this summer, actually.
Oh, they're the 17s? Right, that's interesting. The one that was supposed to be tomorrow was Ebu Adams with Gambia. They're supposed to play Algeria tomorrow, but Ebu has, from the Gambian Football Federation website, turned down that call-up to focus on playing for Leyton Orient because his contract's up at Norwich in the summer, isn't it? And to be frank, he's never really felt like a proper Norwich player, has he? He was brought in from non-league. There was a few players who almost felt like they were brought in just to fill out the 23s for a while, but I don't think we're going to see him here next year, sadly, for him.
No, I mean, he was a different regime. He was pre-Webber, pre-Weaver, and it's quite clear, a little bit like Toffolo in the sense that you can kind of see how that one's going to end, and and that feeds into it. He obviously has probably already been told now, well, you probably need to find yourself another club. So if he's in at Orient, and by all accounts, I've seen 1 or 2 Orient fans and been quite impressed with him.
He
so
won Player of the Month, didn't he, for last month?
So I'd imagine, he'd be quite keen to get a permanent set-up. If not there, then somewhere else. He's in the shop window, basically.
Okay, well, I think that wraps all the internationals. So a few comments here from Barry Newman. Make or break season for Murphy. Must realise his ability next season. Stop-start this season. What is he, 24, 25 next season? I think he is 24 next season, mustn't live in his brother's shadow. Arguably more ability than Jacob. Potentially, yeah. Jacob seems to have done well at getting stuck in for Newcastle this year, but he's not really been able to show his goal-scoring star for them yet, has he? And finally, why does Josh never play on the right wing? He's right-footed. Hernandez on the left naturally. Well, I think Josh's reputation was kind of built on being a left winger who could cut in on his right, and how many times for the youth team did we see him curl one into the far top corner after cutting in off the left wing? But to be fair, on Saturday against Reading they did switch, and that's kind of the modern way now, isn't it? That your side isn't set in stone. No,
I mean, it's the modern vogue is inverted wingers, which is basically playing off their stronger foot when they cut inside. And the idea then is that the width is provided by your full-backs stroke wing-backs, but it's not really happening for Norwich. I mean, Jamal, he's finding his feet and he's not really offering that attacking threat too often. There's the odd sporadic burst. Pinto, when he plays, tendency is to chop back inside. So, I think, for me, they're basically starting on the right sides, and they're obviously going to be, I don't know what the stats are, but I'm sure in any given 90 minutes they will be crossing over fairly frequently, so I wouldn't think that's too much of an issue, really.
Yeah. Right, well, I think that'll just about do. This time next week we'll be at Carrow Road waiting for the team news, although I personally won't, because I'll be across the pond in America sunning myself. So
get that on in, mate.
I'll leave Pad to sort the team news that day. But until then, we'll keep you up to date with all the international action at PinkUn.com. Just sent some quotes from the Cambridge boss Joe Dunn about Adam Phillips' development and why he's not been involved there, so that's worth having a read of. And also Paddy's back page story today, Daniel Farker talking about Alex Tetty and James Maddison's future, so they're well worth a read as well. Right, thanks Pad. I think we'll catch up with you guys next week. Cheers.